everybody, it is Seawell back here with another video, and it's been a while since I've done a reaction video, but today we're going to be reacting to the icebergs, what happened to NASCAR's original tracks. Now for those that watch my channel and know about me, I like NASCAR history, and I like going back and visiting the past of the sport, and I definitely really love the Lost Speedways documentary that was made a couple years ago. It was just an absolutely great series and amazing production. But anyways, a lot of people make videos on lost speedways and of tracks that no longer are run or are, I guess, destroyed now, unfortunately. But anyways, we're going to be checking out this new video and seeing what he has to say and sharing some information that maybe we don't know about. So let's go ahead and get right into it.
In NASCAR, we race at plenty of different exciting venues. There's tracks that are huge, small. There's tracks that are, oval, tri-oval, road course, whatever it may be, dirt, asphalt. And they're all, in some way or another, part of a great story and have great stories among themselves. But there's only a select few that can say that they were on the original slate, the original tracks that NASCAR raced on, which a sport was built on. So today, we're going to look at those 8 tracks and see just what the hell happened to all of them. Starting off, we're going to go in chronological order to how these were raced in the first season, with the original starting race of the Charlotte Speedway. Not to be confused with the later built Charlotte Motor Speedway, this racetrack was a 3/4 mile dirt track, hosting the first ever NASCAR race in 1949 at 150 miles. The original location of the Charlotte racetrack would be actually a few miles west of the current location of the NASCAR Hall of Fame. The first race had about 13,000 spectators on June 19th, 1949, and was won by Jim Roper. And this held strictly stock and Grand National, or what we know today as Cup races, through 1956, where the track would unfortunately see its untimely end. Why was this? Well, the track was closed due to the construction of I-85 through Charlotte, which the original plans, which are the ones they use to today, had the interstate run through the parking area of this speedway. Had this not happened, I'm pretty sure that this would be the location of a Charlotte racetrack and not the one in Concord. The second race of the inaugural season took place at the Daytona Beach road course. This took place a couple miles away from where the eventual Daytona International Speedway would be built, and it was both on sand and asphalt, as the sandy part was the beach and the asphalt part was the adjacent road with it. And this was the birthplace of speed, where original land speed records were set, and also where NASCAR itself was formed and founded. This was the series premiere event as well, until it was unseated by the Darlington Raceway when it was built for the Southern 500. The first event on this track was won by the inaugural champion of the series, Red Byron, and it was raced on by NASCAR until 1958 when the Daytona International Speedway was built. Ultimately, it was a headache for the city because it was harder for them to plan. They'd have to close down roads, whereas the track itself was a closed course circuit. And by the end of its lifespan with NASCAR, it had up to 35,000 people coming to see it in 1957 and 58. This also was the start of the tradition of speed weeks to take place in February, though it at the time was not to start out the season. Today, you actually can drive on the beach at select times during the day, and it's definitely a place that...
When I went to the 2019 Daytona 500, I remember after the Xfinity race on Saturday, me and my dad went and walked on the beach. But yeah, they actually have reunions and stuff down there too. I know some people bring their classic cars out. It's pretty cool. I'd love to go to that one day, but expenses are expenses. But anyways, let's get right back to the video.
Any NASCAR fan should go to get in touch with the roots of the sport. The third race of the season was raced on the Okanichi.
This track. I'm sorry for pausing so much, but this track is one I want to go see in person because you could still walk around it It's in the woods, of course, but of course they have like a trail there, and you could see a bunch of cars there that are no longer capable of running. But it's a really cool, interesting place from what I've heard. I definitely want to go visit it someday. It's like, the only problem is it's like almost 3 hours away.
Speedway, a 9/10 of a mile dirt track. Big Bill France had this track built where the property's old horse racing track was back in 1947, and the opening race here was won by pioneer driver Bob Flock. The town of Hillsboro, over time though, where it was built, began to oppose racing, and the city just wasn't big enough to sustain it, which is probably why this track didn't last. Plus, racing on Sunday, it wasn't exactly a popular move in the 1940s and 50s.
Sure.
This was also the site where NASCAR's first female driver raced as well, Louise Smith, back in 1949. Over time, the racetrack had different names, including the Orange Speedway, but would be closed in 1968 and left to be grown over. Now, reaching to the halfway point of the season was the Langhorne Speedway, which is a 1 mile dirt track. And it was known in its time in NASCAR as being the most dangerous track, not only in the series, but in the entirety of the United States, because this track was just a circle. There were no straightaways whatsoever, and it was hard in the old era cars to see around this corner, wherever it was on the track. It was built in 1926 by the National Motor Racing Association, or NMRA. And it was the most attended race of the inaugural season, with 20,000 in attendance. And, of course, with so many people there, the most popular driver, Curtis Turner, would be the winner. Because drivers couldn't see around the corners, the amount of fatalities at the facility was exceptionally high. And in the area of the track that was labeled Turn 2, it was called Puke Hollow, as the forces going against a driver constantly turning at that point, plus the jostling of the car on the dirt surface, caused drivers to vomit. In 1957, NASCAR raced there for the final time, and by the time 1967, just 10 years later, rolled around, the track was sold off for mall developers. After the final race in 1971, the track closed, and to this day, a Sam's Club sits where the track used to be.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
The 5th race of the year was held at the half-mile dirt track, the Hamburg Speedway. Now, this is the most mysterious of the original NASCAR racetracks, as not much information is known about it. They only had 2 cup races at the track, 1949 and 1950, and because there's not much info, like I said, it's very much a mystery. The only real connection is that the area the track was at allegedly was around the same place, in the same area, around the same time of year as the Erie County Fair in Hamburg, New York. The fair has been held since 1820, and if the two were connected, it would explain why this didn't last long if it wasn't a fan favorite. I'll tell you what, if anyone can find more info on this, I might make another video on this track, so let me know in the comments or on my DMs on Twitter. The 6th race of the original season came at a pretty familiar place for most NASCAR fans, the half-mile then dirt track, the Martinsville Speedway. This started off, as I said, as a half-mile dirt track, but was paved in 1955 and hosted its first 500-lap race for the NASCAR Cup Series that same year. It was relatively a nothing track. There really wasn't much that set this track apart from the early days of NASCAR, as the track really didn't have too much to its name. It was a small dirt track, or then a small paved track that had a small purse, a small attendance for the first couple decades of the sport, and really just through sheer grit, this track managed to survive. Since 1950, the Martinsville Speedway has held 2 races a year for the NASCAR Cup Series. And what probably helped it over time is that it was a joint venture ownership between Bill France Jr. and Henry Clay Earls, and the Earls family along with it. Now, over time, layouts of the pit road and the track itself changed. From having 2 pit roads, one on the front stretch and one on the back stretch, to having 1 connected pit road, to having a track that was purely dirt to purely asphalt, to now today having asphalt almost for the entirety of the track with concrete corners. This track has a ton of character to it.
I wish they kept the
While
grass,
rumors swirled in the NASCAR community that NASCAR would be removing it from the schedule in the 2000s due to not growing the way the other markets did, It, to this day, is a fan favorite and driver favorite alike, and is still on the schedule. It is the only one that has been continuously on the schedule since 1949. Drivers love it because of the tough beating and banging, winning a classic grandfather clock as the trophy, one of the most coveted trophies in NASCAR. Fans love it because of the old school racing feel to it, the short track feel to it, and that it has great famous red hot dogs that, I'm gonna be real, I probably had 3 or 4 dozen a day being there in the spring. And to add even more character, there's a rail line that runs behind it where trains actually pass by during just about every NASCAR race held there. The penultimate race of the inaugural season.
One thing I will say real quick about Martinsville, there's been 147 Cup races there, if I'm correct, and the I'm working on a video about Martinsville. I'm not going to say what it is, but yeah, I mean, Martinsville is just an all-time classic track. I mean, definitely, I would say probably the best short track on the schedule right now. Even though they did have the poor race earlier this year with the Cup Series, it's still a very cool track, and I've been there a couple times. Definitely love to go back. I was hoping I was able to go to this upcoming Sunday's one, but just things didn't really work out. So, it is what it is. Let's get right back to this. Hildeberg Raceway
was run at the Heidelberg Raceway, a half-mile dirt track. And much like many auto racing tracks at the time, it was originally built as a horse racing track in 1947. And its initial founding was actually helped by local Pittsburgh Steelers founder Art Rooney. The track was only 6 miles southwest of Pittsburgh itself. Racing started there in May of 1948, and even if the initial event was rained out, it still had a good history, even though it only hosted 4 Cup races in 1949, 51, 59, and the final one in 1960. This was the site of Lee Petty's first win that season, and in general, and he won the last race there as well in 1960, which was nearly his last win. His second to last win, though, to be specific. While hosting late model races after NASCAR's tenure there and paving it in 1967 to try and draw them back and draw other series, the owners just couldn't keep it afloat monetarily and had to close it in 1973. Nowadays, the site is called Raceway Plaza, where a Walmart and Lowe's home improvement store were built on top of its original location. NASCAR's original finale that season, though, was held in the North Wilkesboro Speedway, a 5/8 of a mile dirt track. The original 1949 finale saw a track that broke ground in 1945 and opened in 1947 on May 18th that year. In 1949, Bob Flock would beat out Lee Petty to win by 100 yards, and starting in 1951, the track hosted 2 races a year, which was a tradition that lasted almost 50 years. While starting on dirt, the track, like many others at the time, would be paved in 1957, and this was a proving ground for the pioneers of NASCAR. The track, with leadership from the owning Staley family, became a driver and fan favorite and had plenty of character to it. While NASCAR grew, this track, though, stayed both visually and literally as a slice from the past. And unfortunately, as NASCAR boomed, the North Wilkesboro Speedway could not keep up, as the Staley family didn't want to raise ticket prices, so it was a cheaper one to get, brought in less money, had smaller crowds, smaller purses, and it led to the track's 1996 demise.
I'm sorry for pausing again, but I will say, as y'all know, if y'all do watch my channel, I have filmed here a couple times this year, and yeah, I mean, this is the drone footage shown here is before they started having races back again, and as you can tell, they were working on things over here. They're going to definitely add more stands for the All-Star race, and a lot of new. There's a lot of things that are being worked on. I'll say that to be. I will say that, and the parking's definitely going to be a question, because I don't know how everyone's going to get a parking spot, considering all the roads nearby and everything. A lot of the roads are 2 ways or one way this way, one way that way. I was going to say southwest, west, whatever. I didn't want to mess it up. But anyways, let's get right back into the video. Yeah, it's just to be a lot of traffic.
Which was spearheaded by Bruce Smith and SMI. This was done in an effort to give, in 1997, races to the New Hampshire Motor Speedway, which is owned by SMI,
New
and
Hampshire,
SMI's new
overrated, man.
Texas Motor Speedway. While reopening efforts over time after the track closure in 1996 failed in 2009 and 2010, and the track fell into disrepair, well, it still wasn't the end. With the ending of the 2010s, in 2019 came a very new age solution for the Relic's closure problem. And this was spearheaded by Dale Earnhardt Jr. and iRacing as they cleaned and scanned the track for the iRacing service. In May of 2020, due to the COVID pandemic, races had to be shut down in general, and with the iRacing service now having North Wilkesboro as a track, they raced it in the Pro Invitational Series on Fox Sports 1, and over 700,000 tuned in to see it, giving the track another spark.
Well, I will say this, a lot of people were, like, gained interested in it because of the iRacing. Yes, that did help, but this is one thing I do disagree about. That did cause some interest and everything, and of course they did a great job with the scan and everything, but me personally, I don't think that's what sparked this track's revival. I don't think that iRacing was the reason why. I may be wrong with how I'm saying that, and no offense intended, but I will say that people's interest was sparked again by just word of mouth, by posting about the track, by SMI, Dale Jr., about Save Speedway, everyone involved with that. I don't think that the iRacing vid, yes, it had a lot of viewers like he mentioned, and yes, it was really cool, but that's not what sparked a lot of people's interest. Maybe for the younger generation it did, that for those that didn't go to this racetrack before or haven't been to the track, maybe that's what got some of the newer fans interested, but I don't think that's what really sparked things.
100,000 tuned in to see it, giving the track another spark. With this spark, Marcus Smith and SMI began the resurrection process of the track.
Yeah, they did do that, but then again, I disagree a little bit about the iRacing thing, and that's okay. I mean, it's just my opinion. I'm probably going to get a lot of comments and DMs about that one. But anyways, let's continue.
2022, the track was brought back for grassroots racing, which former NASCAR stars Dale Jr. and Ryan Newman were headliners in. And in 2023, due to the success of this grassroots push, in fitting fashion, North Wilkesboro will replace Texas for the All-Star race on May 1st, 2023. Nearly 76 years to the day of its May 18th, 1947 opening. In NASCAR's 75th season, they will make their triumphant return to one of NASCAR's founding tracks. Now with that, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Well, I mean, I definitely was very intrigued by this video, and as y'all know, I like NASCAR history. I like sharing about NASCAR history, and I really like this video, and there are some tracks I didn't really know much about in this video, and I'm sure there's some that y'all have probably never seen before. So comment down below your thoughts. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. Make sure to go check out Jared's channel as well. And also subscribe to me. I'm almost to 1K. I would love to get there by the end of the year, even though it's probably a long shot. And yeah, that's all I really got to say. Thank y'all so much for watching, and until next time, I'm out. Peace.